Hello, thank you for checking out this meditation video this evening or whenever you might catch up with it. I thought I might do something a little bit different, a little more in-depth this time. I'm doing some additional meditation teacher training, so I'm being a little bit challenged to get deeper into topics, so I'd like to kind of share that with you. And so tonight I want to talk about being present and the witness state. These kind of go hand in hand. So there's a lot of talk about, mindfulness these days, as if that's a trademarked word, but it can be just as simple as the idea of being present. So when we talk about being present, we talk about immersing ourselves in whatever we're doing. So we're kind of focused on what we're doing, but also open. So when we are involved in a task and not dwelling on the past or imagining the future. So a lot of times we experience this sense of being present in a flow state. So if you think about athletes, performing, they are in their game, they are not preoccupied, or at least they're not, and still performing well. And so same thing with musicians, artists, you're in that state of complete focus. Now, our daily life does not require such complete focus as these higher level activities. So our mind has a tendency to feel like, oh, this doesn't occupy my full consciousness, so my mind can wander around as much as it wants. So if you think about all the things that you maybe been doing while driving that you shouldn't do, and I think we can all relate to that. Another example is I have a nephew. I have limited amount of time with them, so if I'm not present, then the consequence is I'm missing out. So not as dangerous as the consequence of not being present when you drive, but still just two examples of how being present can have consequences if you kind of let your attention drift away. So we kind of allow the mind to think that it's more capable than it really is. The mind thinks that it's pretty cool, that it can do all this stuff. And then you think about, I don't know if you've heard of the invisible gorilla experiment. So just there are various different ways this experiment has been done, but the gist is you're supposed to follow how many times a player with a certain color shirt passes the ball to someone else. So there's a bunch of people on a screen passing the ball, and you're supposed to count. And in the middle of all this, a person in a full gorilla getup just walks out into the middle of everything. And only 50% of people actually see the gorilla when they replay the video and say, hey, look at this, you totally missed this gorilla in the middle of the screen. So I'm not trying to say that the participants are dumb that missed this, just that the mind is limited. So we want the mind to be more of a tool for us. And to use the mind as a tool, we need to kind of train it to get used to how it functions and to kind of know what we're up against. And we have a practice for this in the Shambhava yoga tradition that Emily and I both come from. So Shambhava practices are all about using a meditation practice to get better at your life. So in this case, we are going to practice the witness state, trying to look for a state where we can be aware of the activity of the mind, and that tells us how present we're being. So I'm going to read a little quote from our teacher, Babaji Shambhavananda. Here he is with his great big smile. He says, when I talk about the witness state in meditation, I'm referring to the ability to observe the comings and goings of the mind and emotions. This doesn't make you asleep or less conscious or less engaged in life. It allows you to see the patterns established in your life and to improve yourself. So by kind of using this witness consciousness, we can know what the mind is doing, and therefore kind of make sure it's not controlling us. So we're going to use the Hamsa meditation, maybe with a slightly different twist on it than usual. So we're going to give our mind something to focus on. And we'll just kind of be open in this practice. So the mind will have this hum, sa mantra, H-A-M as we breathe in, hum, S-A-H as we breathe out, sa. So this will be silently, not out loud. You'll kind of hear the mantra just working in your breath. And as we practice this, you'll notice that little thoughts start to kind of creep in your peripheral vision. And so that's okay. We're not judging these thoughts. We're not trying to fight them. We're just using this hum sa practice to focus on a mantra and our breath and observe when things start to crop up in the mind that might distract us. So I invite you to find a comfortable seat. Maybe move your shoulders, relax any tension from the shoulders. Let your seat be tall, arms heavy, face relaxed. Notice if your eyes can close all the way comfortably. Sometimes if you have really busy, twitchy eyes, they might need to be a little bit cracked open, and that's fine too. Beginning to connect with your breath. We're not changing the way we breathe. We're just noticing more acutely this activity of breathing. Gentle expansion with inhalation. Easy resting with your exhalation. And if you haven't already, starting to introduce these sounds of hum and sa as you breathe. Hearing in your mind the sound hum as you breathe in. The sound sa as you breathe out. Giving the mind this one simple thing to focus on. Notice how quickly the mind starts to bring in other things that it wants to think about. This can take many forms. Maybe you hear your thoughts, or you start to visualize something. Each time that happens, you can just kind of smile at your thoughts. Coming back to this practice of hum and sa. The mind always wants to be doing more. And in this practice, we're just trying to observe what the mind wants to do and redirect its energy into the practice we've chosen. So maybe you've totally gone down the road on a train of thought. That's okay. Just relax. Usually the eyes tense up when we're thinking. Shoulders might also. So just relaxing, coming back to hum and saw. Maybe you can find more depth in this practice by just feeling every little bit of hum trickle in with the breath until the breath reaches its end. Feeling the tiny pause, and then feel the saw exhale take over. Feeling as though your awareness was resting at the space between inhale and exhale. Body breathing in to meet you at the top of this breath. Your attention staying here as the body breathes out and comes up to meet you again. If you need a little more help imagining what this could feel like, imagine yourself on a swing set. It's the sensation of a pendulum coming forward and pausing for just an instant, floating before it turns back. Trying to identify with that little bit of stillness of floating. As the breath continues, this hum, saw, inhale, exhale in the background. And maybe from this point of stillness between the breaths, you become even more aware of the next thought that starts to creep in. And you can just smile that you caught it as it started. And before it gets too far, just redirecting to hum and saw. Same thing goes for any external distraction, anything going on in your house around you. Just knowing that nothing short of a fire alarm is just fine. You can be simple, that you can be with this practice. Taking care not to judge your ability to work with the mind, and to just come back to your practice as many times as you notice distraction. Hum and saw, working with your breath. One more check-in. One more chance to relax any muscles that might have tensed up from thinking, especially those eyeballs, those facial muscles. As we come to the end of our practice, just take one final big breath in, a big hum, and a full, easy saw breath out. Finding a little movement, blinking your eyes open. So the point of this practice, just to recap, is not to kind of dump on the mind or anything like that. We're just looking to see that we are not the mind, and that the mind can be a little bit under our control, so we can use it effectively as a tool. not let it trample all over us. So I hope that practice worked for you. Thank you for joining me. Namaste.